Hello, welcome to Podfic Galore. I'm your horrible online reader, Goldskype. I read out loud fanfictions for you busy bees, free of charge and no strings attached. Today, I will continue reading the Silmarillion fic by Aeolian Sands from Archive of Our Own called The Rescue Party, Chapter 12. I hope you can at least try to enjoy my voice, and I will try my best for you with the equipment available to me. On with the show. The Rescue Party, Chapter 12. Ulmo's Errand. Ulmo thought he had struck a solid deal with Garantir. By having the elf lead his parents, aunts, and uncles to the strongholds of the Noldor, he was cleverly passing the entire flaming fireball to someone else. But the Vala of the Seas was getting impatient. He had been sitting in the form of an old man on this log in the middle of this dark, repetitive forest where every tree looked the same for far too long. He wouldn't understand why Yavanna and Orme and so many others of his kind loved the woods. Even elves love the woods. Did they not go mad being unable to see the horizon? Give them clear skies and open waters any time of the day. But by Eru, this was claustrophobic. Ulmo rubbed his forehead. He was never this irritated. But the river still needed his attention, and they were the prayers of Círdan's people, and Owen's people, and everyone else to answer, and he was stuck in the forest waiting for the elfling who had been staring at him for the past 90 minutes to drop out of the tree. Finally, the Vala couldn't take it anymore. I know you are there. I promise I am not going to eat you. Come down, he asked in the mannish tongue. The elfling, really more of a young adult than a truly half-elf, finally dropped out of the branches, landing in a soundless crouch, a glaive held in one hand. He looked the Vala in the eyes for several seconds before clearing his throat. I've never seen you before in the forest of Brethil. Where do you hail from, and where are you going? Authoritative and to the point. Not that he expected anything else from Haleth's son. I was coming to find you. Find me? Half-elf asked, suspicion flashing across blue eyes. No one comes to find me. Are you not the only son of Haleth, former chieftain of the Haladin? I would think that many people in your tribe would seek you, and yet you wander about these woods like a common outlaw. Why is that? The petted help brought his spear closer to him. What do you know about such things? He demanded. You have not answered my question. Because the dealings of the Haladin are of no concern to a traveler on the road. Ulmo nodded, and he took a moment to look at the young one in front of him. His hair was deep golden brown that could look dark at a distance, and his eyes were alight with discerning intelligence. While the half-elf stood tall and proud, his face was not unkind. I'm no mere traveler. I was sent by your father. Haleth's son raised his eyebrows. I have no father, he muttered. Ulmo chuckled. You are not so ancient yet. Of course you have a father. And he loves you greatly, Artanaro. The half-elf's face went pale. Only my mother knows of that name, he said in shock. And your father, of course. For he's the one that named you it. Noble Fire in the old elven tongue. Is that right? Yes. And he looked down for a moment before looking Ulmo straight in the eyes once more. Did he really send you? Do you know who he is? He asked, hope alighting in his fair face. Ulmo realized suddenly that he was in a quandary. The Seamaster hadn't realized that not even Haleth had told her son of his father's identity before she had died. Really, he should keep closer tabs on some of the mortals. Yes, of course. But perhaps it is not safe to whisper his name here, as it is not wise to use your Quenya name. What did your mother call you? She named me in our tongue, Halgeir. Halgeir, well met. You may call me Ertur, Ulmo declared, using an alias that had come to him while he had been sitting on a log for half an eternity. Well met, Ertur. Now you have pried my secrets from me. Tell me, what message does my father send, and why does he not deliver it himself? He wants me to take you to the Falas, to live with the shipwright Círdan and his people. These woods are not safe. Holger took a wary step back. The Falas? To live with the elves? No. No, Errand. You do not understand. I will be no more welcome amongst the elves as I am amongst my own people. I am strong. I can defend myself here. Sandspit. Ulmo felt a mortal headache coming on. So you admit that you're not welcome here? Holger took another step back. He looked close to fleeing. Go, the young one proclaimed. You are some wizard or trick of the enemy. Do not pry into my business any longer. I am happy enough here. If my father really wanted me to leave, he would have come to find me himself. And then the half-elf leapt back into the tree and started running across the limbs. Ulmo swore. He considered for a moment changing into something that could give a quick pursuit, but figured that would make Holger trust him even less. So he kept his managed form with its long white beard and hair and followed at a much slower pace. Artanaro named both Halgeir, Spear of Stone in the Mannish tongue, and Gilgalad, Sword of Radiance in Sindarin by his mother, leapt quickly and nimbly across the branches. He was just past his 50th birthday, and there were few in the forest of Brethil who could outrun him. And while Halgeir doubted that this Errand could even climb a tree, frail and elderly as he had appeared, something was not right about the stranger. For one, he was a stranger. Where did he come from? Had he really been sent by his father? Why did his so-called father suddenly decide to care about him? An arrow whizzing past his face jolted Halgeir out of his thoughts. Immediately, he brought his glaive before him in defense, but no second arrow followed, just the cruel laughter of men. Oh, would you look at that? It's the witch spawn. See his face? He doesn't look a day older than when he last attempted to walk among us. He's starting to look rather pretty, I say we tolerated the freak long enough. You think anyone would trade for him? Halgeir leapt out of the tree to stand before the leader of the guardsmen. Watch your foul tongue, Jogan. Do not speak ill of my mother. She was no witch, but a chieftain of the Haladan. Your chieftain! More laughter, as more of Halgeir's people emerged from the trees. The half-elf tensed as they surrounded him. Oh, then she betted something unnatural. There can be no doubt about that, bastard half-breed. More jeering and remarks. None of them new or original. Halgeir felt kindling of fire in his spirit. Perhaps today he would fight. Someone jabbed him in the back with a large stick. Does it feel? Oh, look, it does! And Halgeir spun his glaive down in an instant, whipping it to the side and swiping at the feet of the 4 men before leveling the blade at the offending man's throat. Don't touch me, he hissed. So the little bastard has some fight in him. Who would have thought? I've always seen him just curl into a little ball. I bet he's a half-beast, something that dies laying down. Halgeir whipped the spear back and eyed the men around him, fire beginning to dance in his blue eyes. Am I the son of a beast? Then perhaps you should be afraid. Be afraid of the dog that has remembered how to bite, he snarled, before leveling a kick at the man's chest and sending him flying into a nearby tree. There was a ringing of metal as swords were drawn and arrows notched. Enough! A great voice called. Halgeir looked up to see the stranger standing on a nearby hill, white hair and beard alight in a column of sun that filtered through the trees. Oi! Is this your father? This old geezer? One of the men laughed. But Errand did not answer. He stormed down the hill, into the center of the circle, and grabbed Halgeir by the hand. We are leaving, he declared, with a voice that had more authority in it than even Chieftain Halmir's when he was wrathful. Still Halgeir tugged his hand back. He did not need a protector, and he certainly did not require a guardian. You was a pretty bastard, a man snickered. Errand seemed to stand 1,000 feet tall then. His father has sent me to rescue him from your cruelty. He's ours, Jogan spat. He was born to our chieftain, and so belongs to our tribe. Send the spider, or whatever dark thing spawned him, our regards. Then someone shot an arrow straight at the half-elf's chest. Halgeir swung the glaive, but even as he did, he knew that he did not react fast enough. He ducked, praying to his mother's gods that it would hit his left shoulder and not his heart. However, the arm of Ertur was their first, and the arrowhead lodged within his forearm, red blood seeping out. To Hallger's amazement, the old man did not so much as grunt. Instead, he pulled the arrow out in one swift motion and flung it at Jogan, hitting the leader of the forest guard in the knee. Jogan cried and fell to the side. I find I am short of patience today. You will let the half-elf go with me, the old man demanded. The men shuffled their feet but did not move when Ertur took Hallger's arm in a crushing grip and dragged him out of the circle. For a moment, Haleth's son dug his heels in before relenting. He did not want to go with this man. Anyone who came with too many demands and too few explanations was worthy of wariness in his eyes. Not to mention, something simply felt off about him. But Hallger was also patient, and he quickly recognized as he stepped over a still groaning Jogan that now was not the time. Thus, he let himself be bodily pulled away from the men who hated and despised him, who had treated him as an outcast and as less than human, but who had also been the only people he had ever known. Myron rose slowly from his throne in his newly established stall in Gauroth. A werewolf, one of the first he bred, came slinking before him. The lieutenant of Angband reached a fair hand out to touch the creature's head, and saw at once images most particular. Feanor had returned. And not only Feanor. The wolf had seen the creator of the Silmarils and the dead elven king, Fingolfin, fighting in the Sirion Delta. Myron smirked and leaned back on his iron throne, petting the wolf's head before allowing the faithful servant to lay at his feet as a reward. This is news, and he wondered how it fit with that scream of song he had heard echo through the foundations of Ea a few weeks ago. Evidently, dearest Manwe and Namo were conspiring again. It's all for the best, he mused. Dol in Gauroth was so terribly boring. He wondered for a fleeting second if his master knew, but he doubted it. Morgoth did not have one ear to the ground like he did. He did not always have one eye watching. No, Morgoth was great in power and majesty, but he was a force that lacked precision and focus. Two traits Sauron knew himself to possess in spades, as the men would say. The Golden Maya chuckled. This would be a nice little opportunity. How pleased his master would be to deliver unto him not only the Silmarils creator, but also that spawn of scum, Nolofinwe, who had wounded him before the doors to Angband itself. He licked his lips and stood. Feanor picked at a blade of grass that had found its way into his hand, absent-mindedly splitting it into 3 strands and braiding it as he waited for the rest of his family to finish eating breakfast. We need to split up, Garanthir declared suddenly, standing up. We're attracting far too much attention as a group of 7. Already I have seen the eyes of the wolves of Sauron. It will not be long before the enemy is upon us. Everyone stared at him. Then Nerdanel nodded as one deep in thought. But won't that just have a numbers? Already we would be outnumbered if the enemy does come. Not if. When, Fingolfin answered. There are no more ifs in Beleriand. Garanthir has a point. The Noldor took a blow unimaginable in the last battle. So great were our losses that I am surprised there is a still stronghold for us to return to. And no one is expecting us? He asked Feanor's son. To say no one is expecting you is the understatement of the age, Garanthir confirmed. If I still had my messenger hawk, I would send a word, but I'll let it go free. Feanor twitched a bit. Garanthir, he muttered, repeating that strange name his brother had used. Was that his son's Moriquendi name? His dark-haired son turned to him in expectation. Nothing, I hadn't heard that name for you yet. Is it the tongue of the Moriquendi? Garanthir smiled ever so slightly. Yes, I am known as Garanthir here. We all have picked names since Thingol instituted the Quenya ban. Fëanor felt a familiar rush of rage seep into his bloodstream. By what right did King Silverlocks outlaw a language? But he fought it down. Or at least he attempted to do so. Foolish nerve, that flower-crowned dog, he muttered under his breath. Nathaniel stared at him. Fëanor bristled. I just can't believe you let him get away with it, he said. Fingolfin held up a hand. Easy. Yes, but there were a million other concerns facing us than what trade language we used. Here I am known as Fingolfin. You two actually already have established names, he replied, looking at both of his brothers. Dare I ask? Questioned the blonde. You are Finarfin. Your eldest gave you that name, and you, Naro, are known as Fëanor, after your mother name. And Fëanor wanted to choke. He was about to rip into his brother when Nathaniel scooted close to him and put a cool hand on his arm. Let it go, she said through Osanwa. This is not worth it. Certainly not now. Are you not hearing this injustice? He snapped back. We have no luxury here to be arguing about kingship and names, Nathaniel spoke out loud. You are all born to rule. Yet if it matters so greatly to you, dear, then I am sure we can convince scholars to remember you as Finfeafin. Finarfin chuckled before having the grace to look embarrassed. Fingolfin was staring intently at the ground, his shoulders shaking. Fëanor felt his insides twist, but at least he growled. It is a sore subject, but very well. Neither here nor there. Finfeafin sounds like a name of a madman, and my idiot brothers are already greatly amused at that name. For a long awkward moment, no one spoke, until at last Anara cleared her throat. Nephew, you were saying 2 groups? She asked, changing the subject. Therefore, if one group gets in trouble, the other will know that they are missing? With no one expecting us, we would otherwise go for months without hope of rescue. Garantir nodded. You have read my mind, Lady Anaira. Where are we heading, then? Errand asked. Knowing Artanis, she certainly would have wandered off on her own. All of Nara's sons, too. My brothers and I established kingdoms in the east, while Findicano and Olafin stayed in the northwest. Uncle Arafinwe, your children established realms of their own, as well as Findaratos, Nargothrond being the closest to us of all the realms of the Noldor. This continent is vast, and any journey will be perilous. I advise we all make for the same place, Fingolfin declared. We're low on supplies, so we should make to Nargothrond first. I want to see my sons, Fëanor declared. He was not about to be dragged to see Finrod. Nathaniel elbowed him. As do I, but our nephew is closer. No, I am sorry, but no. He was about to make his case, this time putting some of his power into his wordcraft, but then Nathaniel reached down and wrenched the rock out of his hand. See this, Naro? It came from up the river, from the northwest. You can fight your load of mithril and stay alive and get much-needed food, water, and weapons from your nephew at the same time. Plus, Nargothrond is also on the way to Findicano's seat in Hithlum, Garantir added. Then it is decided, Anara declared, clapping her hands. Never mind that it was very much not decided in Fëanor's mind. And worse, it seemed that his own wife and son were reasoning against him. We shall see our golden nephew first. One group should be led by Morio, and another by Nolo, since they know the land the best and can speak the language of the Moriquendi. We should have at least one wife-husband team split, so 2 groups may have strong Osanweb bond to communicate through, Nathaniel added. I'll go with my son, even though he stands against me now, Fëanor muttered. What? Garantir spoke up, staring his father straight in the eyes. Fëanor blinked, unused to hearing his son talk back. He held his gaze, and in those stormy grey depths, he saw that the Morio Finwë had changed. You want to go see your cousins, and I do not. I want to stay alive, Garantir corrected. Which does not appear to be your forte, Atar. Erwin nodded. Nara, it's all right. You might be able to go for weeks without food, but the rest of us like to have a good meal at night. Go with your son. If you will have me, I can come with you." "I'm coming with my husband so he doesn't kill himself walking into a tree branch," Errand muttered. He walked over where he sat and affectionately messed up his hair. Meyer crossed his arms at the indignity but said nothing. Finarfin stood up then. "Well, that walking disaster is already a full fellowship. I guess that leaves Nala, Anaide, and myself for the second group." Karanthil looked at his parents for several long seconds. He sighed deeply. "All right. Since Atar has a tendency to get distracted, we will leave first. There shall be no stopping to discuss the geology of either the mineral or clay variety," he demanded, looking at his father and mother in turn. Nathaniel tugged her husband up and then kissed the brow of his son. "We will try, my dear one." Finarfin hugged his wife. "Let me know if you need a break. We can switch later," he whispered through their marriage bond. Then Karanthir saw that their belongings were packed onto his horse, and leading it by the reins, led his group up the single trail that weaved through the tall reeds of the delta, praying to Eru above that this would be a simple trip, but knowing in his heart of hearts that such a wish was impossible. End of chapter 12. Stay tuned.